morning, good morning, good morning. I am Tamara Johnson Sheely, y'all. Good morning. It is a absolutely beautiful, sunny Saturday morning here in Georgia. When I tell y'all this is going to be a great broadcast, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. Look, let's just get this party started, y'all. You know, we've been following this whole reparations movement. I'm a reparationist, y'all. And those of you who know Dr. William Sandy Darity, y'all, he is in the building. He's in the building, but I have a co-host that's going to join me this morning. Let me say good morning to Mr. Rye Williams. Good morning, Rye.
Good morning. How are you?
Welcome, y'all. Mr. Rye Williams is Culture Speaks. Not with an S, Culture Speak. Let me get it right.
That's right. It's all right.
And he's going to share more about his efforts and what we're doing with Reparations Sunday. And, you know, we're going to chop it up, but we're going to bring Mr. Darity in because we only have a few minutes with him, y'all. Just the fact that he's in the building, I'm psyched. Dr. Darity, welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. And I want to applaud you for your courage in pursuing elected office out of the state of Georgia. You know, it's really unusual to see a true reparationist seeking public office, and so really proud of you for that. And I want to congratulate you for your efforts.
Thank you, sir. You know, this is our second run. We ran in that special election in 2020, came in 6th place, Dr. Darity. 5 candidates ahead of us had millions or influence. But the fact that we came in 6th place, I call us the first place grassroots candidate because we got over 100,000 votes with the reparations agenda. Georgia's right and ready for this.
Good.
Yes. So I have been following the reparations conversation. I follow it every day, literally online, and came across these mayors. And I said, oh my goodness, we need to hear from Dr. Darity because reparations now, it's federal. And you've been clear from the very beginning that it's a federal initiative. The agenda is bigger than any state can handle. But these mayors now, Dr. Darity, have their own agenda. And I wanted our audience to hear from you.
Well, let me start by saying that the estimate that Kirsten Mullen and I have arrived at for the minimum cost of a reparations program, one that would eliminate the racial wealth difference in the United States, or the racial wealth gap in the United States, would be about $11 to $12 trillion. That's what would be needed to bring the Black share of wealth, which is currently less than 2% of the nation's total, into consistency with the Black share of the nation's population. And I'm talking specifically about Black Americans who are descendants of persons enslaved in the United States. That's a community that's about 12% of the nation's population. So if we're going to bring the wealth share up to 12%, at least, it would require an expenditure of $11 to $12 trillion. And the combined budgets of all state and local governments in the United States, whether it's the state of Georgia, whether it's the city of Atlanta, whether it's the cities that are represented by the 11 mayors that you've been talking about, their combined budgets amount to less than $3.5 trillion. And so there's absolutely no way states and localities could really meet the bill for reparations. Moreover, it's the federal government that's the culpable party as well as the capable party. The federal government is the entity that's responsible for sanctioning the atrocities that have taken place from the period of enslavement in 1776 through 1865. Into the era of legal segregation in the United States, which was accompanied by upwards of 100 massacres of Black communities that resulted in significant loss of Black life, but also the appropriation and seizure of Black-owned property by the white terrorists. And then in the current phase of our lives, we still are confronted with mass incarceration, police executions of unarmed Blacks, discrimination in housing, credit, and employment. All of these things are things that the federal government has either mandated or sanctioned in some way. And so to talk about local and state reparations, from my perspective, is oxymoronic. And that doesn't mean that localities and state governments shouldn't take steps towards improved racial equity, but they should not call it reparations. I mean, it's misleading, and it creates somewhat of a detour away from the obligation and responsibility to demand that a reparations program be inaugurated at the federal level.
Mm-hmm. And just to put this more in context, I want you, Dr. Darity, just to introduce yourself to those who may not know who you are and why I'm so excited about having you on this broadcast. Can you tell them, just introduce yourself to the audience for those who may not know you?
Well, I'm a faculty member at Duke University with appointments primarily in public policy and African American studies. With Kirsten Mullen, I'm the co-author of a book that was published in 2020 called From Here to Equality: Reparations for Black Americans in the 21st Century, where we make an extended case for reparations on behalf of Black Americans who have ancestors who were enslaved in the United States. So there's a specificity to the community that we view as eligible for reparations. And that's attributable to the fact that this is the community that's descended from the folks who were promised 40-acre land grants in the immediate aftermath of the Civil War, but that promise was one that has never been met. So there's a debt that's owed to this particular community because of the intergenerational effects of the failure to meet that promise. I guess the other thing I'll mention in this context is I think I've been working on this for 30 years or so. That's not as long as some people, like Mary Frances Berry, who wrote the incredible book on Callie House, My Face is Black is True. But I think it's relatively longer than a number of people who have entered into the reparations conversation.
And you're an economist.
I am an economist.
Yes. So I was listening to an interview just yesterday with someone who has information about reparations and quote unquote some data, but this person was an economist and ironically kept referring back to your work. So I'm like, so why don't we just go to the source?
Well, hopefully I can be helpful.
Yeah. Dr. Darity, talk about what reparations is, because here in Georgia, and you and we've had this conversation. I've interviewed you before, and talk about what reparations is, because I'm telling you, I don't just get the pushback from those that don't look like us, but the pushback that comes from those that look like me. I find myself like wanting to fight. Like, come on.
Well, there are two levels of pushback among members of our community. Mm-hmm. And one level is the folks who outright reject reparations. But the other level of pushback is a little more complicated because there are different perspectives about what reparations should look like. And those perspectives are not reconcilable. They're very, very different. And so that's the other pitfall or trap that we have to be aware of. But the way in which Kirsten and I define reparations in our book is to describe it as a program of acknowledgement, redress, and closure. Acknowledgement, redress, and closure. So we use the acronym ARC, A-R-C. And acknowledgement simply means that the perpetrator of the harm recognizes and admits that they have committed a grievous injustice and pledges to engage in an act of restitution for those harms and damages. And then that act of restitution is the second component of reparations, which is redress. And historically, when you have a victimized community, a community of individuals who have been subjected to harm, The form that redress has typically taken is direct monetary payments to the individuals who have been hurt. And some standard examples would include the German government's payment of reparations to victims of the Holocaust. But in the U.S. context, our own government made payments to Japanese Americans who were unjustly subjected to mass incarceration during World War II. And then there's some instances where our government has paid reparations without being the culpable party. And I would include here the payments that were made to families that lost loved ones during the course of the 9/11 terrorist attacks, but also the commitment the government has made to make payments to the individuals who were held hostage in Iran at the end of the Carter administration. And that's an interesting example because the commitment that's been made by the government is to pay each of these individuals $10,000 per day of captivity. And so the typical person who was held hostage for about 440 days. So that means that there's a payout that's due to them of $4.4 million per person. So there's an ample precedence for redress taking the form of direct monetary payments to the eligible recipients. And then the third component of this is exactly that, is this notion of closure, which is a consequence of the effectiveness of the redress process. So the victimized community and the culpable party or the perpetrator come into communication and reach an agreement that the act of redress is adequate, that it's sufficient, and that the debt has been paid, so that the victimized community will make no further claims on the culpable party unless there's a renewal of the atrocities or a new type or set of atrocities takes place. But otherwise, the account is settled. So that's what we mean by reparations: acknowledgement, redress, and closure.
Ryan, you want to jump in? Because trust me, I could just go.
Sure. Well, I wanted to reemphasize Dr. Darity's point. He mentioned the reparations that were paid to, or that are being paid to, survivors of the Holocaust and their descendants by the German government, and that even came as a recommendation from the United States. So like over and over again, we're seeing that the United States understands this concept of reparations. They just haven't done it for the earliest investment in America. So that's particularly interesting here.
Yeah, I would add, actually, the United States government is making payments to victims of the Holocaust themselves, those who are survivors or descendants of the survivors who are American citizens. So, yeah, I mean, it's very clear that there's no ignorance about the meaning or importance or significance of reparations. And, it's just a question of whether or not the United States government can be pushed to make appropriate restitution to Black American descendants of U.S. slavery.
Yeah. It's a cognitive dissonance that can't simply be explained. You use the phrase oxymoronic, and I mean it's all of these excuses and the responses that you hear, the objections that you eloquently dismantled in From Here to Equality. It just doesn't make sense for any informed person to suggest that reparations is inappropriate or anything like that. One of the things that I think about a lot is, what is the purpose of a government? What should the government be doing if not to establish some level of justice, make sure that damaged parties that can't seek any sort of restitution on their own, that they support that. And it seems like there's, as we've been talking about, there's precedents over and over again for the government, the United States government in particular, to jump out and say, we are going to fix this. But we have not done it in the case of America in an effective way.
Yeah. Well, there is always the issue as to why Black American descendants of U.S. slavery are treated as an exception.
So talk
Tamara,
about.
you look like you have something to say.
Yeah, I'm full. I'm always full on this topic. I'm full. So let's talk about these mayors. Dr. Darity, I'm not sure if you heard about what happened in Lenintown, which was a town here, a part of Athens, Georgia. And back in the 60s, under urban renewal, UGA in the city, in some sort of way, were able to take away the lands of this community called Lenintown. And the University of Georgia built a dormitory, and they built a parking deck on the lands that belonged to these peoples that they literally pushed out. The descendants.
Was this by using eminent domain or something even less legal?
Urban, I had Miss Hattie on. She was a guest probably a couple months back, and she said it's under the guise of urban renewal. I didn't go any further with the specifics.
Yeah. Okay.
So nevertheless, they've been able to get some sort of compensation. I'm still not clear where these monies are coming from. However, Georgia has a clause in the Constitution here that won't allow them to be paid directly. So these monies that should be going directly to these descendants of Lenintown, these monies now are being funneled. That's how I see it, through the city of Athens, and the city of Athens now is using it to pay for broadband, giving their city employees a raise, and building some sort of cultural center. So here's where it is heartbreaking, Dr. Darity. I couldn't believe that this was happening right now, like 2021. Like, this is what they're doing with the monies that belong to these descendants. And this is why I go back to reparations and why it's so important. Even right now with this moratorium on housing, these monies that have already been allocated for housing, these monies are tied up in bureaucracy. They're not trickling down to the people. This is why we need direct cash payments. Give me my money so I can go buy my land, buy my home, and I'll have a stable life. So Dr. Darity, this work is so important to me for so many reasons.
Well, so here's the thing. When we talk about Black American descendants of U.S. slavery having less than 2% of the nation's wealth, but being 12% of the nation's population, this corresponds to a situation where the average Black household has $840,000 less in net worth than the average white household. So I'd like you to envision a world in which the average Black household had an additional $840,000 in resources. I think that would be a game changer. We estimate that per person that would be about $300,000, perhaps more, but that's a rough guesstimate. And there is no city or state in the United States with a significant Black population that has the capacity to mobilize the resources that would bridge that gap, that would provide each individual resident who is Black in their city or state approximately $300,000. They just simply do not have the budgetary capacity to do it. But also, when you leave it to states and localities to engage in the reparations process, they come up with all types of varied programs because, it's decentralized. They can make their own judgments about what's needed to be done. In Evanston, Illinois, they're funneling money through the banks that were responsible for redlining the Black community. And so, you don't want to do that. Decentralization has a very bad history for Black Americans, whether you're talking about the GI Bill or whether you're talking about the activation of states' rights to ensure that we didn't have any rights. Okay, so this does have to be a federal project, and what we need the states and localities to do that claim to be committed to reparations is to engage in a coalition to lobby and petition the United States Congress for reparations for Black American descendants of U.S. slavery that take the form of direct payments to eligible recipients.
That's too much like right, like my grandmother would say. That's too much like right. The fact that they would engage in a coalition, and then how would they get some money? Because it sounds like to me, when I see these initiatives, it's like, why do you want to be in the middle of this? You cannot. It's no equity in that. Like if Evanston doesn't help me, I'm in Georgia.
Right. And if you lived in Evanston and were subjected to the discriminatory practices that took place between 1919 and 1969 with respect to the housing market, if you had lived in Evanston but moved away, you would not be eligible for any form of compensation.
So why do they think this will work? I'm gonna tell you respectfully, we have a bill here in Georgia. We've never called it reparations.
Well, that's good.
HB 541 is a commission to study the impact of slavery and Jim Crow on those of us who are descendants of chattel slavery here in Georgia. We've never called it reparations.
It's a form of a truth commission, and those are essential, especially given all of the falsehoods and lies that we continue to be told about slavery, about the Civil War, and about the Reconstruction era.
Yeah, Ryan, you want to look? We only have a few more minutes with Dr. Darity. He has to leave us in
you got a couple minutes.
Got a couple minutes, so we better take it while we got him.
Yeah, I'm obviously appreciative to just be getting a small chance to talk to Dr. Darity, but the conversation around Evanston hits home for me because that literally was my home for a few years. And, it sticks out because Evanston has a very strong reputation, throughout the Chicagoland area as being this affluent but liberal town. And so there's a lot of positive things to be said about Evanston. But at the same time, this is also a place where the cops killed somebody or shot somebody who was like driving around the Northwestern campus or something like that. And so, we're sitting here looking at all these Black Lives Matter signs, and then still stuff is going on. And it's like, wait a minute, there's a major disconnect. And so when I first heard that Evanston was issuing reparations, I was like, first of all, that's impossible. And then I started looking into it, and it's like, wait a minute, this is just marketing. This is just PR for whoever's in office to say that they did something significant, and for all of those revenues to be driven on marijuana sales, when we know that there are plenty of people in jail for having small amounts of marijuana in possession. It's just this sort of cyclical nature of the problem causing more problems, and the solution actually causing more problems as well, because it starts to hide things from people and make it feel like there is this repair, this restitution, and there really wasn't. So I completely agree with what Dr. Darity has been saying about don't call it reparations, don't use reparations as a term until it's reparations, and we're talking about payments. Dr. Darity, I do have a question for you though, because my background is largely in business. I got a minor in economics, and so it's kind of a more flat and wide understanding of business. But one of the things that stands out to me is diversification, and so not just being cash, but also land and that sort of thing. And so I'm curious about your thoughts on the other forms besides money, but in addition to money.
So I actually think that, it should be money, because money is fungible. And if individuals want to purchase land, there's some folks who say they want to repatriate to Africa. Well, I mean, if they want to use their reparations monies for that purpose, fine. It's not my personal desire at the present moment, but I think if you give people money, then they can choose to use it as they see fit. So if there are persons who want to buy land, if they want to use it for small business development, that would be their discretion. And that's the important dimension of making direct payments to eligible recipients, is you give the recipients the full discretion over the use of the funds.
Dr. Darity, I know it's almost at the half hour. You got to go. I just thank you. We want to have you back as often as your schedule will allow, which I know it ain't often, but I definitely want to have you back. So thank you, Dr. Darity, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, as always. Take care.
Nice to meet you,
Have a good
Dr.
one.
Darity.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Woo-wee. We had Dr. Darity.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Mayors and reparations, right? I've been seeing these articles, all these mayors. There's like 11 or 12 of them so far. More MORE, more mayors. Let me see if I can put it on the screen, right? Because you know, it's amazing that they're calling this reparations, and it's not. It's not. Let me see. Let's put it on the screen. They actually have a website, and I just don't want this to be, a grab. Like I feel like it's about to be.
Yeah. So, I think, and we've talked about this before, but I think that this is a phase that will happen in any modern movement where it just becomes a trending topic. And so, the way that I think about this from a strategic perspective is that it's truth, fairness, and accountability. So great. They're coming out here talking about fairness. They're going to say reparations is something that we're pushing for. All right, that's cool. But is that actually true? Is there any truth to what you're saying? And then if that is true, we're going to hold you accountable. If you genuinely believe in supporting reparations, then let's keep track of what you're actually doing. And so this phase of it is just part of it. Hopefully there are more mayors that get on board, but they're basically making a list. These are all the people you got to hold accountable, because we can't just give people votes. We can't just give people support without them actually doing something beyond just talking the talk. So I support this. I don't trust it. I support it, but I don't trust it. So go ahead and make your list. Saves me a step, and then we're gonna be asking you what you're actually doing here very, very soon.
Yeah. And these monies, though, like I said, looking at what happened in Lennon now it's Precedent. You have a model of how to take monies that don't belong to you, to the city. If these are tax dollars, use your own money to take care of your projects in your city. Don't use the monies that belong to specifically to these people. That's theft. You're stealing. To me, that there's no truth in that.
Well, I think it's good to see, because really it wasn't just the federal government who benefited from racism, who benefited from slavery. It wasn't just the federal government. And so like it's all of America in some way, shape, or form. So to see these local municipalities decide that they're going to take some part is good, because once you have like the two ends, you have like something moving on the federal level, you have stuff going on the local level. Then the state starts to say, well, where's my place in this? And so now you start to get everybody involved. So I don't, like I said, I don't trust it. I don't think it's enough, but I absolutely support any sort of action that pushes the conversation forward. And whatever happens on a local level doesn't preclude what would happen on a state and federal level. So if Evanston decides they're gonna, charge a tax to everybody living in Evanston, I personally think that's fair. Like part of the reason that that Evanston as a town, because I think they call themselves a town. I can't remember. When you go in, it says the welcome to the village of, or the town of. I think they call themselves a town. Anyway, you know, they have benefited as a city, but then the individuals who live within the city have also benefited from these things. You know, when you think about the redlining, oh, now you got the premium property where you shouldn't have actually had it. You should have had to buy it from somebody. Yeah, there are individuals there, but then the city's actually benefiting from all those tax revenues and that sort of thing. So I think it's fair for anybody who feels like Evanston is a place to live, Evanston is somewhere where you really want to be, that you acknowledge that the reason it is that way, or that it was able to get to where, you know, the city wanted it to be, was because of the things that they did in the past, whether that's right or wrong. You know what I mean? Like if I threw some huge party and everybody that got to come and kick it with me and enjoy themselves, but it was with money I stole, well, you know, I might come back to you and ask for $5, you know, when I need to pay my debt back, you know. So like, that's just how it is.
Like I said, this sounds like you stole it. It's thief. It's you're thief.
Yeah,
you're thief.
For sure.
You're
For
thief.
sure. I think I think of reparations a lot as, so if you ever see there's the movie about Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook and how he stole the idea and that sort of thing. Okay, I didn't see it either. I didn't see. I just know. I just know how it went. But basically, these twins went to Mark Zuckerberg with the idea for Facebook, and then he said, "Yeah, I'm working on something just like it," and pretended that he was working on their project when really he was just building his own thing. And so they basically said, "Hey, this is our idea. He stole it from us." And he shouldn't have sole ownership, or not sole ownership, but we deserve our piece of the pie because this is supposed to be our project. And so they never had equity in the company. The company continued to grow, continued to thrive, but they had claims to why the company was able to become what it was able to become. And because of that, they got cash and equity in Facebook. So if you have the same sort of situation where America became what it became on the backs of slavery, then guess what? That makes us one of the earliest investors, whether we have equity or not. Only thing that needs to come now is a legal claim. A legal claim, you win your case, and then you get restitution. This isn't like a really complicated situation, to be honest.
Well, you know what complicates it though? It's like I said, going back to my statement to Dr. Darity, it's the pushback that we get from. I honestly expect the pushback from white America. I do. Mm-hmm. So I expect them to not understand because culturally there's a lot that they don't understand about us. So I expect that, and I'm probably a little more tolerant, much more patient, because I'm like, okay, let me figure out where they are in the midst of this and meet them there and see if I can bring them full speed ahead. Right. So that's my approach with white people in white America. But when I meet Black people, when I meet us, that is where it gets so damn complicated.
Yeah. So here's what I would say. Like you think about the amount of brainwashing that would really be required to make slavery effective. And then you actually like look into the science and the art of psychology and how they were perfecting classical conditioning and really effectively brainwashing. They were doing this like in lockstep with slavery. It was like that people are constantly studying how do you get someone to go against their own self-interest. And we still see that stuff today. We still see that sort of manipulation today. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people derive their identity from where they're at right now, whatever their status is. You know, if they're successful in corporate America, Black, white, whatever, if I have a good job that pays me so much more money, it's because I did something good. I made good decisions. I went to the right schools, whatever. And that's like in their brain. This is about me. And if you go and tell them that basically you don't deserve your degree, you don't deserve your job, you don't deserve any of these things, they were just given to you, you got lucky, whatever, that is offensive to them. They will, you know, build up some sort of callous. And so for people who, again, Black or white, any race, it really doesn't matter. If you tell them that the reason that these people who are not doing as well is because they are more oppressed than you are, that they have significantly more challenges than you are. Then you have to just in relativity, you have to say, well, wait, what does that mean about me? Do I deserve to be where I like? And so for everybody else, you're like, I'm not saying anything about you. I'm not saying anything negative about you. I'm just saying these people are oppressed. But for them, they're saying, yeah, but that's where I derive my ego. I derive my ego from knowing they're not very well off because I made better decisions than them. What if that's not true? And so, like, even the black
so put a pin in that, because I think I want to dissect that a little bit. So, like, there's some black privilege.
Yes. Yes.
That's what I heard. Like, is there some black privilege?
Yes,
like, wait.
And this is what I told you when I was explaining like why I do what I do, is because I found myself as the only person in the room over and over and over again. And I started really, coming to terms with my life and like what put me in those rooms, what got me to where I was at. And instead of saying, oh, it's just because, I'm smarter than everybody else, it's just because, I made all the right decisions. It was like, well, what if it was because I got really lucky? What if I got lucky that I had the parents that I had and that the cops didn't arrest me that one time, like didn't ruin my life that one time. And what if it was because I turned left instead of turning right and, would have gotten in trouble, like what if that's why I am where I am today? Let me
hold this, like, because I gotta stop you, because I'm telling you, you hitting it.
Yeah.
I go back a step, because see, this is where black people get it wrong. This is where we get it wrong. I'm gonna tell you, I did nails for 18 years. 18 years. I sat at the feet. I scrubbed people's feet. I did their hands and feet for 18 years. God had to humble me. You just hit home for me. I'm just gonna tell you my story. You just hit home for me. God had to humble me for 18 years. He was like, because you're gonna serve, but you got to learn how to serve on this level before I can take you to the next level. So for 18 years, I did people's hands and feet for a living. Now, I don't know how much more humble and servant I could get. I think that was it. That was it for me. Right. So I used to say to myself, but I'm smart. And I knew I was smart. Look, now you hitting on home, right? I got to tell you, Culture Speaks, y'all. Go to the website, www.cltrspk.com. This is Rod Williams, y'all. He's going to introduce himself in just a minute. But I used to tell myself that I'm smart. I used to tell God, I'm smart. I know I'm smart. I know.
Yeah.
But God had to humble me and show me something different. Introduce yourself, Rod, and talk and tell us about Culture Speaks, because you bring it at home, because there is some black privilege, and that's the pushback we getting with reparations. Why we can't move this ball down the court. There's a blockage, Rod. Yeah. But introduce yourself first.
Yeah, well, but I will definitely introduce myself, but I want to say that that privilege and that proximity to privilege is the drug. Like, that's the thing that is really addictive and can cause some real issues. But I'm Rod Williams. I'm the CEO and founder of Culture Speak. It is a strategic analytics firm that really just studies systems of oppression and control and tries to figure out the best ways to dismantle them and replace them. And so looking at everything from economics to social interactions to politics, and then figuring out how they all work together, because they are mirrored systems and have a lot of pieces that are essentially the same and serve the same function, regardless of like, say in a corporation, for example, you have a board of directors who ultimately decides who the president of the company is going to be. And then you look at the electoral college and you're like, wait a minute, the electoral college actually puts a president in the office. And so these systems are extremely similar. They're very, very, very similar, no matter what way you're looking at it, no matter what field you're in. And so we look at all of them and try to figure out how to take strategies in each of them and amplify the work that other people are doing. So that's what ultimately brought me to find you as a reparations candidate, because as we start to drive towards truth, fairness, and accountability, there's nothing more relevant in America than reparations. There's nothing that has a stronger need for truth, fairness, and accountability than reparations. And so that's where we're focused right now and for the foreseeable future. I look forward to the day where we've accomplished reparations and we're satisfied with the result and we're able to say, all right, what's next? But until then, we're focused on reparations and we're focused on using technology to influence, again, the economics, the social, and the political platforms. So there's activity in each of those things. I can go into more detail on what we're doing in any of those spaces. But it's a big project, and it's something where I'm networking with people constantly. I encourage people to find me on LinkedIn, Rye Williams, RYE Williams. You find me on LinkedIn, we can have a conversation, and I will let you know how you could help me do what we are doing at Culture Speak.
Yeah. I'm glad that we have connected. And yes. Rye and I, we've been working on a project. You want to talk about it, Rye?
Yeah, sure. So Reparations Sunday, actually, well, I'm gonna have to talk about what we're doing on the corporate side too, just to make it all make sense. So Reparations Sunday came from the strategy that we have within the corporate space. So within the corporate space, the idea is the things that are happening within an HR function, within a DEI function, they're kind of getting silenced, and they're being put in the hands of people who have a conflict of interest because you're getting paid from a company, but at the same time, you really, really want to help the people who are reporting these issues, and you're just seeing this disconnect between the people who are supposed to solve the situation and the people who are who you're actually reporting it to. So it's just not making sense. And the way I kind of looked at it was like, hey, wait a minute. This is like, the police having to investigate themselves. It doesn't really make sense. And so the HR function in a lot of ways is like the police. So let's create a platform where people can anonymously report what's actually happening within their organization, so that the next time a company says, oh yeah, we're perfect, we're able to say, actually, this is what we see as happening within your organization. And then other people can come to us and say, I'm thinking about a job at this company, but I don't want to mess up my career going into a bad situation. So they come to the site, they look up the company, and they're able to find it. It's a lot like something like a Glassdoor. The big difference is that you're able to name names. You're able to talk about specific individuals. And then from there, we're able to track where those individuals move from company to company and be able to say, actually, we think there's an issue in this department at this company. You might not want to go there. And so then you say, all right, well, if that sort of level of accountability and transparency is good for corporate America, what would it do in, say, the social and political space? And one of the biggest levers within society is actually the church. And particularly in Black America, you're talking about the Black church, which is like the pinnacle, right? And so the thought was, okay, how can we provide a level of transparency into what's happening with these churches? Because I'd love to see churches operate the way they did in the civil rights movement, where it wasn't even just Black churches. It was all faith leaders out there saying, we're going to treat people the right way. And there's so many scriptures that talk about reparations and how you literally talking about slaves. How do you treat your slaves when you let them go? It's explicitly stated in the Bible. So if that's true, where are the faith leaders? And where are the faith leaders that I can support who are really, really supporting reparations? And that's really the idea, is how do you uplift the people who are doing the right things, who are really doing the work? There are a lot of faith leaders out there who speak a lot about reparations, who speak a lot about civil justice. And those are the faith leaders that I want to be able to support. I really, really want to be able to support them, because who doesn't love church? But then at the same time, if you love church, who doesn't have a little bit of church hurt? So, that idea was like, all right, Reparations Sunday, instead of it just being, the idea that you had initially, Tamara, to say we're gonna have them talk about it. on Juneteenth, the weekend of Juneteenth. Let's do this every Sunday. Let's allow the best faith leaders in the country who really support their community, really support reparations. Let's give them a platform where we can put them in lights and celebrate them on a constant, ongoing basis. And whoever comes, whoever doesn't, they do not. So Reparations Sunday is a website. Go ahead, put it back up there real quick, and let's walk them through it.
I'll put it back. Let me get it. There you go.
Yeah. So at the top, you can find a church that has already said, "Hey, I support reparations. Come to my church," because when you decide to tithe and give offerings, that's going to a church that's going to be fighting for you. And then if you happen to be that faith leader, a member of that church, and you say, "Yeah, we're a church that's for reparations as well," you can go ahead and sign up on the list. So I know we haven't really been promoting it. That's going to change here soon, where we're really getting more vocal about the existence of this website. But it's like I said, it's an opportunity to see what's what and see who is who, and to really support the churches that support you. I'm gonna go to a church now that I'm down in Georgia. I'm going to a church tomorrow. We're gonna see who else is gonna be on this list. But it's gonna be it's a national thing. It's a national thing, and I'm really excited about it because I think a lot of faith leaders do want to talk about reparations, but it could be a complicated conversation, especially when you're gonna get that pushback that we've already talked about. When you know that people are gonna have a lot of negative things to say, and you're gonna have to be able to respond to them in an effective way. So all credit to the faith leaders who've already signed up, and to the ones that are coming soon. Commend them a lot. But it's kind of an exciting thing to imagine that the world could come together under their faith and support reparations.
Amen, Brother Rye. Amen. I'm excited. This project excites me because I grew up in the church. I love God. You know that song, I love God. Yeah. What's wrong with you? I love God. And I grew up in the church. I was baptized at 12. I miss the church. I miss it. And now somebody just put up a question about the churches in the civil rights movement. What happened to those churches during the 60s that were so, they were the leaders. They led that fight, between the churches and the young people. That was the civil rights movement.
Right.
So where are they today? Where are they now in the bigger discussion of reparations? Where are you? Where are you? And those are the churches, like you say, right? That's where I want to worship. That's where I want to be. Where are they?
I'll tell you, they are pursuing privilege. That's what they're doing. Instead of looking around and looking at the community, instead of saying, "I serve you," they're looking for privilege, just trying to figure out, how do I protect what I already have? How do I protect my proximity to this politician or to this or that? That's what it is. Because it's not a knock against the churches, because that happens to everyone, whether you're in corporate America or whatever else. I mean, I'm not sitting here today pretending like it was easy for me to leave corporate America. That was not an easy decision for me. I gave up a lot of money. I gave up a lot of money to say I'm going to go do something else. And even after I did that, I was still kind of like, how could I reasonably ask anyone else to do the same thing? How could I reasonably say, "Hey, you should give up this career, this lifetime of making money the easy way and come do something hard?" But that's what it is. That's why I call it a drug, because as soon as you get a little taste of privilege, it's hard to give that up. It is extremely hard to give that up. And that's where these churches are. They become real big, and it becomes real easy for them to bring in new practitioners, and it's hard to give that up and become hated by some people who are not necessarily good people. But like, you're going to bring on that hate. If you start really preaching about reparations, look at what happened to Jeremiah Wright in Chicago at Trinity. Like, it wasn't just conservatives who were coming after him. It was anybody who loved Obama so passionately that they didn't want Jeremiah Wright around him. They didn't want his name, you know. And so like that's a tough spot, because I mean, I've been to Trinity several times and was like, wow, this is different. You know, this is somebody who's really fighting for the community, who's really preaching for the community. But that's not the sort of love. It wasn't a consistent sort of love and acceptance. It wasn't that. There was some real hate. There's some real hate. So yeah, if you're gonna give up that privilege, then you know, you can be that sort of civil rights movement church, but you got to give it up in order to get it back stronger. And you know, I don't know if everybody's ready for that.
And there lies the problem. You're right. There lies the problem. They're not ready to give that up. This Black privilege that we didn't know we had, that we didn't know. That I think a lot of us, like you say, we don't know it. Like I said, I knew that God had to humble me before he could take me to the next level. I did know that. I just didn't understand what he was doing in my life.
Yeah.
So I had to do, you know, what I did. Like I said, I had to be at somebody's feet and be humbled for 18 years to be able to move to the next level.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, I had the same, I have the same sort of feeling about my experience, because, you know, most people, their lives are kind of this upward trajectory where things get better and better, you know, as they continue to work and they grow. And maybe, you know, for some people it's slower. Some people it's super fast and it just happens. For me, it was like my life kind of just kept getting worse, kept getting harder for a really long time, you know. And so like I grew up, you know, like very early on, I grew up just like, you know, very relatively privileged. Like for a Black person, I was pretty privileged. And then things just kept being taken away from me, you know, and like over and over again, these like traumatic experiences where I'm losing this comfort and stability until like, you know, I'm out of college and like struggling to make it. And like, what happened? What happened? Like, I should be well off. I should be like comfortable and living this easy life. And so then when things kind of, you know, did that, you know, final dip and then started to come back up, things start coming back up. And then I reached this peak, this height of like, wow, now I have everything that I felt like I should have had years ago. But wait a minute, it didn't have to be like that. It could have stayed bad. It could have kept getting worse. And if I hadn't been fortunate here and here and here, if all of those things didn't happen, then I wouldn't actually be here. I wouldn't actually be able to feel good about my status. So like I can't claim this as all me, because it was not me that brought me down. It was not just me that brought me back up. So, you know, I gotta, you know, humble myself on all of that and recognize that I got a lot of privilege from the beginning. And then even now, I got a lot of privilege that's putting me in this position. So I don't want to be just another affluent Black guy. I don't want to do that. I want to be somebody who's actually fighting for the community, and hopefully it inspires some other people to do something similar. But I'm not about to ask anybody to do it either.
So this is where those of us who, you know, God took us through, and that's the operative word. He took us through. We owe it back. Yes. And so many people aren't willing to go through. They get to the door and they just stop. They're not willing to go through what God has them to go through in order to be on the other side. Like, I feel like I'm on the other side where I can't close my eyes to homeless people laying on the streets in Atlanta. I can't close my eyes when people need something and I got it and I can do it. And even if I can't do it, I'm gonna figure out how to help you get it done. Right. You know, I can't close my eyes to none of that.
And you know what, we brought up the point earlier with Dr. Darity. Dr. Darity said, imagine what it would be like if all descendants of slavery were able to have the sort of finances that they really need to be able to do some things. And the craziest thing about it is, most people, because I like to ask people all the time, like, what would you do if I gave you a significant amount of money right now? Like, what would you do? What's going on in your head? And most people talk about what they would do for their family. But imagine if your family was already well off too, because now you're talking about having everybody across the board having the type of privilege where they don't need to go fix all these different problems because they have the money to fix them. People have the money to fix them themselves. You know what I mean? Like,
and here lies the problem with the Black family. It's always one or two people in the Black family that everybody has to run to get support and help. But like you say,
yes.
Imagine if we got our reparations and everybody came up at the same time. I love it. What's the rap song about? It ain't no fun if your homies can't have none. I know that's kind of like not what that song was about. I know, but that's my point. Like, I want my homies. I don't want it for just myself. I want everybody to come up. So when we all come up, I'm telling y'all, I'm gonna be a farm girl. I'm going to get me a farm. Y'all going to see me on a tractor. My mule going to be a tractor. I am going to become a farmer. That is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So, right, we're almost at the top of the hour. We got about 2 more minutes, but I just want to say thank you. I hope you'll come back and be my guest again, my guest host again. This was a lot of fun. This is Culture Speaks, y'all. Go to this website, get to know. This is a movement, and he and I have partnered to work on Reparations Sunday. I'm excited about this project because we have to hold the churches accountable for this as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And accountability is a good word. People, have this negative connotation to it, but accountability is a good word because it means that everything gets better. If you want accountability in the police department, then you want accountability in the church and in corporate America and everywhere else. You want that because if the police are not doing bad things, if they're not, raising a building fund so that they could go buy a Bentley, if the police are doing what they're supposed to be doing, then you're in a good situation, just like anywhere else. Like it's the same sort of thing. As long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and I know I was crisscrossing the church and the police, but that's the point, is that if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, then I can't trust you when in reality, you're here because I need you. I need you to protect me. I need you to uplift me spiritually. I need you to do all the things you said you were going to do. And so accountability is a good word. It is a good word. And anybody who steps into that accountability is a good church, good police officer, good whatever it is. And we want to celebrate them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Rod, promise me you'll come back and be my host and co-host with me again. This was fun.
Of course.
Y'all, Rod and I, we're again working on Reparations Sunday as a project. I just want to say thank you for joining me. Every week, y'all, put a pin in it. Y'all, I'm planning something. August 21st is my 49th birthday. Y'all be on the lookout. Your girl got a plan. Be on the lookout. It's going to be a day at the ranch. For those of you, I told you I'm gonna grow up and be a farmer in my next life. So we're going to the ranch, y'all, for my 49th birthday. But stay tuned, y'all. I'm working on getting my cowgirl hat and my boots. Y'all, it's gonna be a stomping good time. So hold on. I'm gonna tell you some more about it in the next coming days. But every week we give voice to issues, activists, and activism. You can always support this broadcast, y'all, on my website at tamarasheely.com. And of course, like Ryan, I was telling you, we're working alongside churches to fight for reparations. Please support Reparations Sunday. That's reparationssunday.com. And if you are a descendant of chattel slavery in Georgia, please go to the website. It's hb541.net, hb541.net. This is not reparations. However, it is a study to study the impact of slavery and Jim Crow on those of us who are descendants of slavery right here in Georgia. So we got to do our work here and hold Georgia accountable. That key word that Rod just said, holding Georgia accountable. And y'all know who I am. I'm Tamara Johnson Sheely. Help me, help us. We have a race to the United States Senate to win. Go to the website, donate, volunteer. Y'all, May 24th, 2022 is right around the corner. This is a primary, and this is a race that we can absolutely win. And I want to thank, again, Culture Speaks, Mr. Rod Williams, for joining me on this broadcast today, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a great day, great week.
Thank you, sir. Hold on. Let's take it out with a commercial. Thank you for tuning in to Tamara for Georgia, where we give voice to issues, activists, and activism. I am Tamara Johnson Shealy, your candidate for the United States Senate. I'm a progressive Democrat that believes that reparations will make America great. It is time that we bridge the divide in this country. Please go to my website. That's www.tamaraforgeorgia.com. Please join me every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here for Tamara for Georgia.